Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Literacy View. We have two very special guests with us today. We have the leaders of the Big Sky Literacy Summit. We have Danielle Nell Thompson with us and Terry Noland, two very special women. Before we get started talking about the conference that my partner Judy Boxner has been raving about, I do want to reach out to everyone. Um, all of you have been contacting me. I've gotten text messages, emails, um, private messages in Messenger, all asking where I was, why Judy was by herself at this conference. And normally I don't talk about personal things, but I do feel I owe you an explanation. So I'll make this brief. My mother's health has been declining for a while. And the hospice nurse who has been dealing with us said that my mother had a very short time to live. And I could not get away. I had to be home. And I'm so sorry I missed this wonderful conference. But I do want to thank all of you for caring about my health. Some of you thought that I was sick. Some of you thought I was leaving the podcast. I've had, yes, I had a number of people contacting me. Even my own friends were asking what happened. So I felt I owe that to you. And I want to thank you for your thoughts and prayers. They are very much appreciated. And during this difficult time, it's really nice to know that people care. So thank you. All right, so let's push that aside. I want to start by thanking my co-host, Judy Boxner, because up until a week before this conference, she thought we were doing this together, and so did I. And not only did she pull it together, but she did the most amazing bang up job. I couldn't be prouder, and I'm blessed to have her as my co-host. And I really feel honored that she just took this on by herself and got over her fear and did this. And I couldn't be more proud that she is my partner in this. So I wanted to also do a public shout out to her. So I can't wait to hear about this amazing conference. I'm going to turn it over to our two guests first to just tell me why this conference is called Language is Everything. Because I think, sometimes we hear about literacy conferences, but they don't necessarily have a theme. So if you could just fill us in about what gave you this idea and just tell us a little bit about what brought us to this point. So we could start off with Dr. Nell, and then Terry could jump in and tell us her role in this as well, because we're anxious to hear about it. I can't wait to learn.
Oh, thank you so much for having us here. We're grateful to be here. Faith, that is such an important question because sometimes you don't know how you arrive at where you've arrived. But in this situation, I know exactly how I arrived at where we are at. And it's a joy to be able to talk about my journey because actually I'm a speech language pathologist by training, and my years in the field and then my years as a transformational coach in schools really just kept pointing me back to something that Louisa Moats had taught me very clearly in the Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, otherwise known as LETRS. I was one of the original cohort trainers, and I would just be ruminating and pondering and all the science. And, language was this underlying component system that reading was built on. And we always would train educators that the language brain is organic, it's natural, it will happen. And then we have to build reading onto that brain. And there was a point in my career where I just started questioning if the inputs, because language is neurobiological in nature, it's highly disruptible. It matters. It varies by culture, by linguistic variation. It is extremely malleable early in life. So what if the inputs aren't as reliable as we hope they are? What if children are arriving at school and they haven't had incredible oral language inputs? Would that oral language brain be sufficient enough to build the reading language brain? So that dovetails directly into how Big Sky became the Language is Everything Summit. But to also just give clarity, Big Sky is always about building on a foundation. Every year we keep building and keep building and keep building. Ultimately, my vision has always been to paradigm shift the field. If we can paradigm shift the field, which means that we change our underlying assumptions about how we do things in daily practice based on new understandings around language, we could change the future of children's lives. And I now have that proof through classroom experience. So I do believe we can shift entire bell curves. We can change an entire country's statistics, as we've seen in 2 data sets in the UK, and now, in my own experience in a school, the whole bell curve shifts, and we see that in reading alone. But what about, could we get it before 5 years of age? So language is everything really comes from the reality that language really is everything. And really driving that home, it took a curation of scientists. There's 28 mentors at Big Sky who are really truly scientifically invested in helping us as leaders and educators move this work forward and shift that paradigm. So we base curricular resources and instructional protocols and teacher training around a model that's developmental and is based on the development of language. So that's really why Big Sky was called Language is Everything.
Faith, sorry about that. I know I did it again. I started talking while I was muted. Terry, I know you were involved with Learning Ally and you made this shift. Tell us a little bit about your role in this big project. I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have spent a lifetime at Learning Ally, national nonprofit organization, and then decided to move away from that and step into this world with Danielle, because there's one thing that we have realized in this journey. We both are big vision people, big thinkers. She obviously is a huge thinker and created Big Sky over 5 years ago and built this vision of bringing individuals together in an experience that truly was such a monumental moment in their lives that people want to go back and do something. And like I said, we're both big vision people, big thinkers, believe that we can change the world. And we both share the vision that can be done through leadership. And what the goal is to raise up individuals that are in that room at Big Sky to be leaders when they go back, to be compounding the effects of their current leadership, that they just get more inspired, more invigorated to go back and do something big when they go back to their schools and their districts. And we define this as, you don't have to have some title. You just have to be a human being that wants to do big things. And that is, Danielle talks all the time about this experience, that is the experience that you get. Like if you go to those sessions, you walk away not just from main stage speakers, but all the breakouts are so curated and coalesced and intermingled with the content. You walk away inspired. You walk away ready to do something big.
It sounds extraordinary. And I'm so sorry that I missed this amazing event. Judy Boxner, she came back and she said, Faith, I kid you not, this was the best conference I've ever been to. She said, I wish you could have experienced it. I want to hear from Judy now. Judy, other than really liking Nell and Terry, what was it that pushed you, that you really, and you said it honestly, this was the best conference you've been to? I'd like to know what makes this such a special standout.
So first of all, Danielle and Terry are such dynamic humans with such passion and energy. Like when they're on stage, nobody's on their cell phone. Nobody's shopping on Amazon like you and I very often see at a lot of other PDs, Faith, let's be honest. And you know which ones I'm talking about. These women are powerhouse women. They are dynamic. They are captivating. And it's like when they are speaking, you're like, wow, these women mean what they're saying and they are passionate about what they're saying. And you could see the intentionality that went into this conference. Every single detail was thought through. The planning, who's speaking, when they're speaking, what is the topic, what is the purpose. And what was really beautiful at this conference, it wasn't just talking about the brain, it was talking about the how. How do you make it happen? What tools do you need to make it happen? And then I even learned more. They have another component. If you want support during the year and you want mentorship, they're not charging $1 million. If you want some support and somebody to talk to and somebody to troubleshoot with, there's continued support after. And that's something you and I, Faith, have also been talking about, right? A lot of these conferences, you go, it's one and done, you're done. You don't know what happens next. You're on your own. You take away a snippet. But now you have top people in the field who are there to hold your hands and support you, which even I need sometimes, right? Coaching is a very hard job. I get very overwhelmed. Sometimes I feel like I don't have full control. And now these ladies at the conference, they were talking about, well, we're going to have the support group maybe at 9 a.m. I don't know if they decided the final details, but there's people in the same situation that you are, passionate about the same things that you are, there to hold your hand. So I think that's so unique. Another thing, it wasn't a disjointed conference. It was so thematic in some ways. It covered all the stuff that we are all passionate about, decoding and, phonemic awareness, but it pushed the profession in the direction that it needs to go on. I think for so many people, we were becoming so fixated on just one piece of that rope. And we've had Doug Peterson on our episode where he said it's really a problem if you just focus on one piece of the reading strand. And this conference didn't do that, but it gave comprehension, vocabulary, and language the respect that it deserves. And it's an area that I know I professionally need to grow in. And it was so refreshing to finally see an area where I knew I needed to grow in. And they talked about DLD, developmental language disorder. What a neglected topic in literacy that is. I mean, I get the chills because all of a sudden everybody thinks that everybody that has a problem in literacy, that it's only dyslexia. That is not the case. There are different things going on with our children. And I think this conference brought that to light. And that is so important to me because there are so many kids in the field that are probably suffering and not getting the attention they deserve because the people in the field, the practitioners, don't have the training and the knowledge that we are all desperate for and need. And I think we're ready for it. Now, the other thing that I thought was amazing about this conference, look at Nell. She's a speech language practitioner. That's amazing. Speech language practitioners have so much knowledge about literacy, and they're often not at the table with teachers and practitioners like us. That was amazing. Like even in my own building, sometimes I'll say, oh, Can you talk to us about what's going on with those kids? And their caseloads are so busy and everybody's working in silos. And this conference was uniquely different. There was a pediatrician in the house. He was only one guy, right? You know him, Faith. Robert, right? His name is Robert, right? Or Roger. Roger was in the house. You're muted again, Faith. Faith's got to get back to the school, back to school mode. But like, it was amazing. We had a pediatrician, we had SLPs, we had psychologists, we had coaches, we had teachers, we had a little bit of admin. I think we need more admin in the house. I think we need more admins because they're key players and decision makers too. But I think that this conference was everything to me. Language is everything, and this conference was everything to me.
Wow. Well, I think you're all getting big cheers right away because I don't think I've ever heard Judy talk like this. I don't. So big cheers. You get cheers.
You know,
I just want to say one thing. So, when Judy and I were going there, we were so worried about like tech issues. And then I felt bad leaving Judy with these issues by herself. And you know what? She didn't even talk about the tech issues to me. Zero. It was like forgotten. All she was doing was talking about the content. That says a lot. So I just wanted to say that as well. So we have people here who want to know what's so special. Who are your speakers? Tell us a little bit about how each person contributed to this big picture idea. Let's hear a little bit about what went into this conference. I can't wait.
Well, I'll start it off and Terry can wrap up if I miss anything. I think one thing I really want to elaborate on is something that my mentors from Maggie Snowling and Charles Hume and Louisa Moats and, Hugh Katz, and they've really instilled in me this deep desire to be a part of the scientific process. And for a long time in my journey, I would go to the Scientific Studies and Reading Conference, and I encourage people who are truly in the field of science. It is meant to be the scientific journey. It is not meant as a teacher conference. That is not what that conference is for. But I knew that there was this huge lag in science to practice, and that there are scientists at the SSSR conference that literally will say, oh, you're a translational scientist. It's basically what I do. I translate the science into actual true work in schools, in implementation scientists. And they're like, whew, bless you. I'm never going to do that. And you can see right away, this is not a scientist that we're going to bring to Big Sky, right? But what I want you to hear is that there are so many scientists, their heart is in it because they know it is for socially significant change. And there's real deep passion in asking a very minute question that will contribute to the overall field, maybe in a long line of research, but some of these scientists have done the 40 years of research. And that's who was at Big Sky, okay? I've spent about, it's almost 20 years that I've been going to SSSR. And part of Big Sky's vision for me has been to integrate the pieces that could be really educationally relevant and could push the paradigm further into the future. Like we could actually change the way we do business to a new way of doing business. In fact, the rope model was questioned. It's questioned because language actually comes before both of those strands divide. Language is feeding, it needs to be a rope. The rope divides, then the rope comes back together. The first rope coming in is language. And Maggie Snowling's decades of work to show that reading is language and therefore dyslexia is a language-based reading difficulty has been profoundly missed. However, it was first found in 2001. And then we went on with the phonological hypothesis for a long time, and Maggie and Charles and many researchers, Hugh, all were on that team, but they've evolved their thinking. So Hugh went on and with Yakov Pecher and did the multifactorial model. Like, there is no one singular cause of a reading difficulty. We know that the risk factors are variable by child. And so the people that are at Big Sky have deep passion to interface science with reality. Because reality doesn't look like clear-cut random control trial perfection. It can be messy, and they know that. And they're not going to get uncomfortable with the reality of what teachers are facing and what leaders are facing. And, I have to give a shout out. I had 4 personal superintendents in that audience the whole time. So they lead large districts with thousands of children. So we had several big scale leaders in that house, and principals as well. That piece of Big Sky is also something fundamental to who the mentor teachers are. We want to have the mentors who are able to translate the work and stand on that stage and reach a teacher, a leader, and have practical application, but also the people that you're not going to hear from, like Ann Kaiser. Why aren't people hearing from Ann Kaiser? Because she's been siloed by, oh, you're the toddler person. Well, actually, if we understood what was happening in toddlerdom, we would have a far different outcome in the school age years. And those silos need to be torn down. And those silos of researchers we call the summit a summit for a reason, because summits are convergences of people to discuss a topic in depth and come out with transformational thinking. Conferences are for networking and getting together and seeing and learning and doing. But summits are meant to force you into new thinking, because it's been curated for the experience of evolution of thinking. And that's what the mentors at Big Sky are all about. And they know that. They meet with me for several times over the course of the year. So they know, they're thinking, they're pondering. Hugh Katz, he did a brand new talk. He's never done it anywhere else. And we're going to use it as we move into 26, because that topic's going to be really awesome as well. But the point is that they sit and they curate things because they know it's real and it's what educators are facing. So taking what they do in the real minutia of research and finite questions to actual, how does this apply to a teacher's life, is huge. And one last thing I want to say is, we partner with the Reading League in the Montana chapter. We also partnered with the International Dyslexia Association this year and had incredible funding support to ensure that all attendees got the syntax double journal that Julie Van Dyke edited with Nancy Eberhardt and Kelly Powell Smith. So that our goal is to bring that real science and put it in the hands of, Terry, in the hands of teachers. So when Big Sky is happening and I get the downloads, we're like, no, we need, there is no room anymore for competition between the people. It has to be that we're doing this work truly together for the betterment of humanity. And so my goal in really pulling all the league and the IDA and all of us in together is because we're better together and we all have a niche. And if Big Sky, I'll be honest, we're going to keep pushing at a high level, because it's going to attract a high level thinker, because the leaders who are choosing to change, they're going to go back and change thousands of lives. That is what the mentors know about Big Sky. So they know when they come, they're thought leaders, and it's going to be curated for impact. And people are going to truly walk away with they know how to do something when they've left.
I'll just add on to that. Yeah, I'll just add on to that and say, so in the process of curating the mentors that Danielle spends so much time and thinking around, many of these individuals only knew each other in name only. They didn't know each other personally. And so this curation that happens of get on calls together, hash through some things together, elevate your thinking, that is all taking place prior. I mean, think about a typical event. you work on your talk, you show up, you deliver your talk, you exchange pleasantries with people, but you've not integrated somebody else's research with your thinking and pushed it to new heights. So that is happening. Another thing that's happening that is pretty phenomenal is that some of these researchers are citing other people in their works. They've looked up to other people, and they get to meet them for the very first time in person and say, oh my goodness, I've quoted you so many times in my research, and now I finally get to shake your hand and hug your neck. And that's that siloing effect that happens in the worlds that we live in, that is broken down, cast away, and all it is doing is just, because iron sharpens iron, right? It's making each other better when you get in that room together. So a lot of that is happening in this research world as well. I think as the practitioner, you've got in your head, oh, all these researchers know each other. They don't. So that is an important point as well.
Judy, you and I have talked about the idea of takeaways, and we did Takeaway Tuesdays. And the reason we started the whole Takeaway Tuesday was because we felt that people would listen to a podcast and they would say, very nice, that's interesting, and then ask them about something, a week later, they would forget. It wasn't practical. It was just a conversation. And from what you said, one of the things you liked very much was this idea that it built on a foundation, and by the end, people were expected to walk away with something. So you were an attendee besides a podcaster. What were your takeaways? What did you learn from this that really was something that maybe you heard for the first time, or maybe you heard about it, but you did not feel like that was a strength, and maybe now you feel more confident about it? I would love to know what you walked away with.
Well, there's so much that I walked away with, and it's there's so many great conversations that I had. I don't know if I could remember every single one, but there was just so many. One, developmental language disorder is something I need to start thinking about. When those kids are reading a passage and they can't retell anything to me, there might be a reason why they can't. If there's a kid sitting in your classroom that's shy, maybe there's more going on than they're just shy. Some other things. The language correlation with dyslexia is very real, and that's something that we have to think about, because I think for so many practitioners, we've been told phonics, phonemic awareness. I haven't heard the relation with language as much, and I think that was really, really important. And I don't think that schools are prioritizing oral language enough, and language, instruction, which is something else I learned about at the conference. What else? One of my conversations with Antonio for multilingual learners, that was an amazing conversation. And he said he's coming back on the Literacy View. So here I am reminding him he's going to go in depth about literacy blocks and how to structure them. One of the great takeaways from him was, if you're in a school where you're teaching language to kids and you're working in a bilingual setting, give attention to both languages. Don't just do one or the other. That was a big takeaway, because very often in the field, there's been a mixed message. Do one language first, then the other language. He said, no, the best scenario is to prioritize and give both languages equal amounts of love. And he's going to come back on the Literacy View and talk more about that. Some other things that I learned about. There's way better curriculum out there than schools are being given. These lists that are coming into our schools with this is the best, and it's on the research-based, evidence-based list. A lot of it is crapola. There's people now, including Trina and Doug, and I can't wait to see more of their resources. I know that I'm getting a goodie box soon, but there's things that are being created by researchers and practitioners. Wow. Not some people that are just sitting there in an office. They didn't want to go into teaching or stay in teaching, and they're making something and they're sticking a label on a box and saying this is evidence-based. Researchers are actually starting to work on something that actually is more explicit, more structured, and shows what needs to be done for kids with the gradual release embedded within it, rather than my poor teacher scrambling and looking at me like, what am I doing? And they're getting rated on things that aren't even efficient or actually really science of reading aligned. That was another big takeaway. Language screeners. I think they're coming into classrooms soon. And I saw multiple different ones. And what I really appreciated, I didn't feel like the people that were presenting, I didn't feel like it was a sales pitch. I was just seeing different things that were created by different brilliant minds who are actually researchers creating tools that are effective for helping us screen our children. I also learned more about that there's different meanings for screeners. There's not only one type of screener. There's screeners, and I kind of knew this before, but it was good to hear it again. There's screeners for screening kids as a baseline. How are they doing? A pulse check. Then there's screeners that go much deeper, and diagnostics, which actually can determine, does this kid have a real issue? What am I going to do for that child? Huge, huge, huge takeaway. What else? AI, don't be afraid of it. AI is, there was a reference at the conference. We used to be afraid of the internet when it just came out. Oh my God, it's going to destroy the world. And now the internet is a big part of our life. So it reminded me to stay open-minded. There might be solutions coming down the path. I spoke with Ola about different tutoring opportunities for kids. And the one thing that I'm learning about AI, it doesn't get sick of you, right? Even when I'm using ChatGPT, I could be annoying as I want, and it's still like, sure, I like that. I'll give you something better. You didn't like it? I'll keep going. So what if there's a tool that's persistent in helping our students? That doesn't mean it's going to replace teachers. We're not going anywhere. But I think that as a community, we have to embrace that life doesn't stay stagnant. Things change, technology changes, new research comes out, and we have to stay flexible. What else did I see? I saw the Nelly tool. That was fascinating for, diagnosing different issues with language, and a tool that actually could provide help to support students. And I think it comes on an iPad. That's exciting stuff. We have to make teachers' lives easier, not harder. And we also have to provide them with quality materials that help kids, rather than all this big business BS that schools are pushing on us and all these lists. And then the good stuff isn't getting on the list. There's a lot of stuff going on in education that needs to come to an end. Can we stop it, Faith? Do you have any tips?
Judy, I have to say that you have to know that the curation of Big Sky was actually purposeful in light of the fact that the researchers that were there have decades, and Trina and Doug 16 years in, Maggie and Charles are over 4 decades in. They have screeners, both of them do. They have curriculums. They have different start points. They all have random controlled trials, the gold standard of the gold standard kind of research, the effect sizes, entire country implementations. This is nothing like current stuff on lists, but I want to be clear. We as a field, this paradigm shift it happens because of people like you, people like Terry and I. We have to shift how we check curricular resources. And the Reading League and IDA have knowledge and practice standards, and the Curriculum Compass. Well, language has to be built into all of that, because the rote model didn't account for language development. It's not a developmental model. It's a visual metaphor. And therefore, the Reading as Language model, the new model that Stoling and Hume proposed at the summit, is developmental. And we need to, what I love to hear from a principal after the summit was entirely over, she said, you know what, the greatest takeaway was that the Reading is Language model by Stoling and Hume, it showed me as a leader that reading is developmental, and that children go through developmental phases. And that has to be attended to instead of grade level expectation. And Dr. Perry talked about that on the first day too. Development cannot be ignored. And language has developmental precedence over the learning of phonology. Phonology is language, but language, the system has to be developed to fine tune into phonology, the phonological system. But the point is that we're shifting together. We're educating ourselves to educate the field. We have to know more, and then we have to think and become more to do more. And that means we change those rubrics to get these tools on those lists. So Big Sky was rich with evidence-based random control trial tools that you could actually, at 2 different stands out in the hallways, you could actually purchase them if you wanted. There is one that's free, and I put it up on the PowerPoint so everybody could access it. It's sitting at the Ohio State's website, and it's done by the Language and Reading Research Consortium back in 2015. And it's called Let's Know, and it's pre-K 3, and it's in Spanish and in English.
So
And
can
I
I
use
just
it.
stop you a second? Okay, so you
Wait, I
mentioned
can't believe
Let's
it.
Know. You mentioned Let's Know.
Yep.
And I have to tell you, I've heard wonderful things about Let's Know. How come nobody knows about Let's Know?
Because what happens is
Let's Know.
it was a 6-prong research study, which is really an excellent study. Mindy Bridges, Tiffany Hogan, Kate Kane, Alo Taiba, and Hugh Katz, and many others. But they all had 6 sites, and this curriculum ended up being stored on a web storehouse at the Ohio State. Okay. It could have been at Arizona, wherever these researchers were, but it was funded by NICHD. Because it was funded by taxpayer dollars, it sits somewhere because it has to be accessible. It didn't go to publication level. Okay. That's why people don't know about it. We all know that when you have money, you can get stuff advertised and get yourselves on lists, that those are the curriculums people notice. It doesn't mean that it's not an excellent resource that's been sitting there for a very long time. It needs updating.
I have to chime in. I have to chime in.
Okay,
have to
before
chime
you chime in, I got to press that BS button.
Uh-oh, here she goes. She's getting wild again.
No, because when I asked Nell, I knew the answer. It was really a rhetorical question, but honestly, I knew the answer, but I wanted people to hear that. This is about money. And it's the same thing when certain studies are pushed, and then you find out that the people who designed it are paying for the researchers to come in. There's all sorts of stuff behind the scenes. So people, you have to pay attention. Just because something is not out and popular doesn't mean it doesn't have value. So,
All right, I have to say
that's
something.
yes.
I have to say something. I don't know how we feel about lists. We've been talking about that on the Literacy View. We think that the system might have rushed into these lists. We feel that pedagogy is so important. And we know for a fact that some things were put on a list that didn't have extensive studies on it and didn't have extensive research on it. And that's unacceptable. So maybe we should have focused on, and I'm going to refer back to our friend Nate Joseph, maybe we should have focused on pedagogy that we need to see in the schools and classrooms, rather than putting something on a list that we're not absolutely sure is helping teachers and students. I don't know. What do you think, Terry? Terry, unmute.
Judy, you're right. And, in the work that Danielle and I both have done in our careers, she has seen this from the inside of a school, and I have seen this from the inside of an organization and how organizations operate and run. And I know how that goes. And you nailed it, Faith. I mean, it's money. It's if you've got a good lobbyist, if you say the right words, things like that. And so that's what we've done for so long. And we're at a point in our lives and in our careers that say, you know what? Let's help to elevate as many individuals as we can to think differently and do better. So, we look at organizations, companies, do better. And that's why Danielle has been so adamant. Not only is the content curated at Big Sky, the Science of Reading partners are curated. Not everybody gets in. And that's an important thing to know. So you get in, but you don't just get in and show up at your booth and you stand there for 3 days. The goal is that you are in the room just like everybody else. If you're a curriculum provider, if you're a content person at these organizations, you better be in the room learning. And so that is a moment to elevate what people are doing to make your organization better so that the outcomes are greater for our kids.
That's awesome. That is awesome. As somebody who's been in education for many, many years at all different levels, that is so refreshing to hear that that's thought about, because, a lot of times Judy and I talk about this, other podcasts are funded by publishers. There's no secret about it. You can look and you will see that there are podcasts where there's a publishing company or some organization that is paying for that podcast, which means that whatever is being talked about, there's something behind it. There's always something behind it. And Judy and I are self-funded. That doesn't mean we don't accept, advertisements or things of that nature, but we're not bought out by a publisher. And I hope that's the reason both of you contacted us, because we didn't contact you. Maybe you could talk a little bit about why you chose the Literacy View as your podcast live, entity. What made you decide to go with us? What is it about us that you put out an invitation for us to come and take a look at what's happening and for us to do some live work? I'm anxious to hear.
Well, that would be me. I comb the just what's happening out in our field, and you popped up interviewing Doug and Trina. Of course, Doug and Trina were at Big Sky, and they're friends. Actually, I've been using Story Champs for a long time. And I listened, and what I heard was authenticity. Your true desire to just kind of cut through to helping an educator do what is best for children. And so I reached out to you, and that is how we began talking. And I just said, I think I want to, for me, it was about why not have a podcast that is reaching an audience that won't be at Big Sky. Only 500 people get in the door. It's a sold out house every year, and wait lists are long. And ultimately, really knowing, Faith, you had said something on the podcast, about your years of being in this work and since Reading First. And that also triggered me, because I've been in the work since Reading First. And knowing in the interfacing of science to practice, it's a journey. And I think that was most important. And I do want to give a shout out to the future. I love to always say, remember to thank your past self for making decisions to get you to this now self. And remember that your future self is going to be pulling you forward. And I think my future self sees a world where we have integrated publisher, researcher, and educator and leader interaction, where it is continuously improving upon itself and not in silos. That too is also in silos. Oftentimes curricular choices are made in a silo of educators meeting at a table where the leader's not even in the room, doesn't know anything about the curricular resource. And I just have to give a shout out that everybody's doing the best they can right now, because we're working on old paradigms. And there are new ways we can move into this. And I know publishers who are doing these things to really up the ante on what it means to be based on development, what it means to bring the science of learning into it, what it's going to take for a teacher to lift the work. Because we all know, my dear friend and mentor, Louisa Mose, informed teachers do change lives, but informed teachers with efficient, effective tools have a much easier pathway to the end result. And we all know teaching without a resource is painful. And that's why Teachers Pay Teachers came into being, because everybody's like, well, I'm going to sell that because nobody else is, I might as well just give it to people or have people pay me for it, because we need it. People need resources. It makes life much more effective and efficient. So I'm grateful for my future self pulling me into a courageous space to intermix. This leadership move is powerful for, Terry and I, we believe in great leader moves because we don't have a literacy crisis. Remember, we have a leadership crisis. We have a leadership crisis.
We always say that. Terry, well, first of all, I want to thank you, Nell, for that lovely compliment that what you hear is authenticity. That's a real honor. And we are honored that you chose to reach out to us. Really.
Yeah,
that means a lot to us.
It was an amazing thing to be live streaming on YouTube and on Apple and all other platforms at a conference. I mean, that changes everything. That's technology and literacy moving forward right there. Like, how often do you see that happening?
No, we were really honored, really honored. So Terry, this is the no BS zone, right? You've heard us say this is no BS. And honestly, that's the brand that we built here. So I'm going to throw it out to you, Terry. What's some BS out there that you would like to really shout out that people need to know it's BS, and give us some truths that you want out there, whether it's about language or literacy in general? What's some BS that you've heard over the years or at this conference that maybe you heard people buzzing around and you just want to set the record straight?
Wow, Faith. Okay. All right. Here we go.
So before she goes,
yeah, go ahead, Judy.
Every single person that I interviewed was held accountable for the same exact thing. They all gave 3 pieces of BS and 3 things that need to be cheered. And that's Faith's shtick. So I'm happy that we're doing it with you guys.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you one just because this is where this is my heart. This is my love. This is, we all love this work, but we, once again, I have said we do not have a literacy crisis. Everything that we hear in the news and the reports is we have a leadership crisis because the science has been around. And so when we say we have a literacy crisis, that is placing blame on the children. And what we need to do is to place blame on ourselves. We've not led the work well because the research has been there. The evidence has been there, decades worth of research. The research continues to evolve and move forward. And we know that, just like with the summit. So one of the things that I think is this misnomer, and Danielle and I talk about this a lot in the leadership work that we do, is that so many individuals that are out there trying to lead literacy thinks it is a 1, 2, 3 step process. And while there are templates and flowcharts and protocols and all these things that we know are helpful in doing the work, it starts with you, the human. And we have left out the humanity of this work and put it to the side and not integrated that into how we lead the work. If you are an individual in a leadership position in a building or a school district, you better be growing yourself, growing your knowledge. You got to get better before other people can get better. This whole misnomer of, oh, I'll just have my reading specialist take care of that. Oh, y'all just go to that training. I'll catch up with you later. That is the BS. No, see, we've got to have leaders that are growing themselves. And when I grow myself and I raise my lid, we always teach a lesson from John Maxwell on the law of the lid. When I raise my lid, other people can raise as well. If my lid is low, nobody's getting above me. So that's one of the things that we know, and that's our heart. We just want to raise people up. We want to up level people. We want to breathe new life and hope it into them as individuals that don't just know the process, but know the human factor of leading this work.
Wow. Really excellent points. Nell, any BS you want to talk about? Tell us a few BS things you've heard, and then tell us something we should share about, because we always need that positive.
This is a fun one, you two. I know that you're going to ask it, and I still didn't prepare because I just like dug into what Terry was saying, because that's it. I want to say that a big thing that's popping up for me lately, and it's where Terry and I are moving, is systems work. And so I'm going to call BS on the classroom ecosystem with when it is not connected in its entirety to the entire system that the ecosystem exists within. And that starts with the superintendent, the C-suite, everybody around that ecosystem is part of that ecosystem. No decision is made that doesn't affect a teacher in a school district. And when that teacher has to set up their own ecosystem, that system doesn't operate in isolation. That system is part of a massive interconnected all the way to the publisher level systems. So this is Peter Senge's work in the fifth discipline, is systems thinking. And so that individual ecosystem, the BS part is that it doesn't operate in individuality. It operates in cohesive, interconnected operational systems. That what we can say is, as we become more interconnected, meaning through internet and AI and just life is just super connected, we become more disconnected from the fact that we are part of a much greater system. And so I just want teachers to hear that your ecosystem is affected by so many people's decisions, including the publisher's decisions, including the scientist's decisions, including the superintendent's decisions. So just think about the cascading effect on our lives, and know how to potentially see that interconnected nature of your classroom in a greater ecosystem of the district, of the state, and how you can start to make change. As Terry said, it starts with us. We're the human factor. Terry also came up with a phrase that I love. We're icky, sticky humans. We get our ego in the way, which is my favorite phrase lately. Ego just stands for everybody's greatest obstacle. So I'm going to call BS on the fact that, I can't start this. You know what? Language screening from Language Screen by Charles and Maggie, you can choose that for free for 7 days. So you can start. I'm going to call BS on that. You can also choose the free resource Cubed 3 by Doug and Trina. You should just start. Just go for it. I don't care if the state has a mandated assessment system. I don't care if your district has a mandated assessment system. Guess what? They're not touching oral language. They're not.
So you actually modeled this with this conference.
Yeah. I call BS on the fact that we have the tools. So don't think you can't move forward. Use your personal leadership and take that next step.
That's funny that you mentioned that, Nell, because on the air, I made a commitment on a couple of our recordings that I'm going to make sure that I download the free tools and give this a shot. I'm not going to just say it. I'm going to get back on the air after I do it. I'm going to let everybody out there know that I am going to do it, because it's a lot of BS if I say it on the air and go back to my school and it's business as usual. I'm definitely going to do it. And I hope all our listeners hold me completely accountable, because it will happen. I think Trina gave me only like 2 days to get into work and do it, though. That might be a little hard. It might be day 3.
I have to say,
saying this publicly, Judy.
Yeah,
so that
she has to own
means
it.
that you are owning it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And you didn't have to tell everybody you're going to do that. You
No,
clearly.
because you know what? I'll be honest, because that's a lot of the BS that does happen at the conferences. You walk away, you eat a couple of cookies, you get a couple of stickers, and then you're like, whatever, you get into the same routine at work and do what you're comfortable with. But I think it's actually pushing yourself into territory that's less familiar and something that you know is truly really important for kids, that has to stay at the core of what we do, because it's really not about me. It's really about the kids. and they don't have a second time to be in pre-K, and they don't have a second time to be in first grade. I've spoken about this on many episodes. I've serviced a child that was held over in first grade 3 times, Faith, because the system neglected that child, didn't diagnose that poor child, and that the system failed. And I will make it my promise, as much as I can do, I'm not going to wait till the building leader says to do it. I'm going to do it. Can I also say a couple of things that I didn't want to forget on the show? And I know we'll get back. I want to also give a major shout out to Leslie Lord. Her presentation on writing instruction was dynamic. The crowd was going wild. It was so great to hear that writing also was not neglected at this conference with Think SRSD. And what was beautiful, yes, she offers professional development. She kept talking about what she offers free. And that was so amazing, because it's so hard for her to say, yeah, I can work with you, I could train you. People were so impressed. You could download all of her things. I use it all the time for free. I use her rubrics to evaluate kids. I use in my own building, there's exemplars, and there's also assessments. So when your kids get to school and you want to do a writing assessment, there's one for every single grade for early elementary school, free. I think that's amazing. It speaks volumes. You could see who's in it for the right reason. And I wish that more people would get to know the pedagogy behind that, because it is evidence-based more than other things that are out there. But I think it goes back to what Faith was saying before. Very often the ones that are most evidence-based aren't the ones that are getting into the classroom. I also got to give a big shout out to Julie Van Dyke, Nancy, and Carla for mentioning syntax. Syntax. Who's talking about syntax in those classrooms? Not enough. It's such an amazing and important piece of literacy and comprehension. There's another tool they mentioned that I'm walking away with, the Cascade tool and the Explore tool. The Cascade tool can be a game changer for phrasing and fluency, for comprehension, for kids that are struggling to read too many words on the page. Now they have a tool. You could take text from anywhere, put it into this tool, and it easily, for free, breaks it up. And you could learn the parts of speech so easily. I also want to give a major shout out to Ann Kaiser and the doctoral students. Oh my goodness. They brought pre-K into the discussion. How many people are forgetting the pre-K, the 3K, the 2-year-olds out there? They're a part of this discussion too. And it starts with language. And they reminded me of something very important that I need to walk away with. Language doesn't start in first grade. If your kid is struggling when they're 2 years old, that's something to talk to your doctor about. That's something to reach out to people, to therapists and so forth. And the other overarching theme that was so important in this conference in particular was don't wait. A lot of districts, they wait. It's about saving money or collecting a million things of data for years and years. No, if kids need help, collect that data and provide kids with help. Early intervention matters. It makes a difference. It saves lives. And now I'm going to be quiet again.
No, I'm so glad you said that. Obviously, you're passionate about this and you wanted to get that message across. The only thing I want to add, you mentioned all these free tools or low-cost tools, free tools. And it drives me crazy when people think that this has to be expensive, that teaching a child has to be costly, or the most expensive tools means, it has to be better. That's not the case. People have to know there's a lot out there. We've talked about this. We had, who was it, Holly Lane, Judy? When we talked about,
you mentioned when we were speaking with Holly Lane that all you would need is a dry erase board, a couple of pencils, a dry erase marker, and that's a great start.
I said a piece of chalk, and that's it. And I mean it. I really mean it, because I have years of experience and knowing what to do, that ultimately That's all I need, is something to write with and for the child to have something to write with. That's it. So I want that message to be clear, that this conference that I'm hearing, it provides people with tools and the understanding in order to implement the tools correctly. So thank you for both of you being here, and your passion and your knowledge. And clearly, you didn't let time pass by. Nell, you said, just get on it, do it now. You did it. You made it happen with this conference. You didn't just talk about it, you made it happen. And from what I hear, it was phenomenal. Terry, you couldn't have a better partner in crime. Terry's been doing this work for many
They're
years.
amazing. They're amazing. Faith, I want to hold them accountable for something else. I'm going to be greedy. I know they probably want to go to bed and are tired and so forth. But I think the key piece of our show that's really important for people in the field, can you give us some practical tips as we're starting the school year, so that we have a couple more practical tips as we get going with the school year to end and wrap up as well? Some practical practitioner tips.
I think I wrote some things out for you, Judy, because I think this is an important question as well. For me, I really hope that you, as educators and leaders, think about reading as a developmental continuum. So as children come into your classrooms and you're starting to take data, and you're gathering and triaging that data to discuss, really understanding that there are models of instruction that you can start with development first. So, meaning, if they don't know their alphabet, this is my true story. I work in inner city Atlanta. I work in inner city in South Carolina. If they don't have their alphabet or any phonological development, and we're at the beginning of kindergarten, we start with language. We don't start with the alphabet and phonology. So really consider as a teacher and leader, where are they developmentally, and where is the start point? And that goes for phonics as well. If you're in second grade and they don't have any long vowels, do we start them in advanced structures of words and vowels, or do we drop back down to mastering the short vowels and CVC structure? Where do we start? It's developmental. Reading is developmental. And so really consider that you can screen language. It is possible to have 2 free tools, both the Cubed 3 by Language Dynamics and the Language Screen by Oxed that is distributed by Really Great Reading. Those tools are accessible and free, and you could screen your whole classroom oral language screening. So you could know if it's not just like, say you take that data in, if you have a CBM protocol and you understand their alphabetic knowledge development and the phonologic development, and both are really off to you, you really want to know something about language. So go ahead and see if you can find those free tools and do something more. Those are 2 really good ones. Terry, what would you add?
So yes, absolutely. I love the reading as developmental that we heard from the conference. Just integrate that thinking, but make sure that you grab yourself a thinking chair for this coming year. We talk all the time in our mentorship group about getting a thinking chair. Invest in yourself. And what I mean by that is, where is the space that you're going to reserve for yourself every day for as many minutes as you can get? Maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 12, maybe it's 7. I don't know how many minutes you can spare in a day, but that is your time to think. And you can think about your day and you can plan, because when you think, your thinking expands, it gets bigger, it gets stronger. What are you going to read? What are you going to do to invest in yourself? But don't jump in the deep end of the pool if you've not been on a personal growth journey. Start small. And what are you going to do to invest in yourself? That's one thing. The second thing is we heard a lot, and I've known this in the work that I've done, parent focus, Danielle as well, in the work that she's done. We heard this as a theme throughout the conference, especially from Ann Kaiser. What are we going to do to invest in our parents as well, if you're a parent yourself? Now, here's my tip. as I'm finding myself in a situation now of living with a bunch of people right now, my grandkids and kids, is that we turn the devices off and we eat dinner together. Turn them off. And we do a fun little thing. And here's the practicality, Judy, that you're looking for. Every single day, we go around the dinner table at night and everybody does it. And we do high-low buffalo. You don't know high-low buffalo? High-low buffalo is the high of your day, kind of a low part of your day that we talk through and see what's going on. And buffalo is a random thing from the day. And we turn those devices off and we talk and we eat dinner as a family. We have got to get back to that, because think about the language that we are showering on each other throughout the course of that meal. So there's my practical tip for families.
Love it. Love it. All right, ladies, this was amazing. Thank you so much. Listeners, I encourage you to look at the episodes where Judy is live at this conference. We definitely have a lot of material that I'm sure you did not get to. So use August to make it a point to go through some of those recordings with Judy interviewing some of these amazing researchers and speakers. And then we are back in September with lots of goodies, all new Literacy View just for you.
And one more reminder for this episode. Biggest takeaway. Don't wait to focus on language and comprehension. Too many teachers are thinking, okay, let me get them to read the words on the page. And then that was the biggest takeaway. They need it all now. Thank you, everyone. We're changing lives one view at a time. Woohoo!
Okay. Good night.